There is a specific kind of loss that does not come with a clear ending. No final conversation, no dramatic moment, no real explanation, just distance that slowly settles in. You still have their number, you could still reach out, but something has shifted. You feel it every time you think about them, like something underneath the surface is no longer the same. The conversations are shorter, the connection feels thinner, and you find yourself wondering what actually happened. You keep replaying moments, trying to locate where things began to change. But nothing obvious stands out, and that is what makes it harder to process. Because it does not feel like something clearly broke, it feels like something quietly disappeared over time. And if you are honest, part of you wonders if it was you. Something you said, something you became, or something you did not notice while it was happening. But Scripture shows a different pattern, one that is less about blame and more about movement. Not every distance is caused by failure. Some distance forms when direction begins to change beneath the surface. In the book of Acts, Paul and Barnabas had already built something meaningful together. They shared pressure, purpose, and movement. This was not a surface-level connection. They traveled, endured resistance, and carried responsibility together. This was a real bond, formed through shared weight, not just shared moments. And then in Acts 15, a disagreement appears. It is described simply, almost quietly, but the result is separation that changes everything. Not because one of them stopped believing, and not because something immoral happened, but because they could no longer move forward in the same way anymore. Two people, still aligned with God, but no longer aligned with each other. And the text does not resolve the tension, it just lets the separation stand without explanation. Which feels uncomfortable because we want clarity and closure. But the deeper pattern is not about who was right, it is about the reality that shared history does not always mean shared future. There is another kind of distance that feels even more confusing to carry. Not conflict, but absence in the moment you needed presence the most. In Matthew 26, Jesus is in Gethsemane, the night before the crucifixion. The pressure is internal, heavy, and deeply personal, and he brings his closest disciples with him. He asks them to stay awake, not to fix anything, not to solve anything, just to be there with him. And they fall asleep more than once in the moment that mattered most. They cared, but they could not carry the weight of where he was internally. They were near, but not present in the way he needed, and something shifts quietly in that moment. There are places you will go internally where some people cannot follow. Not because they are bad or indifferent, but because they are not built for that depth or that level of pressure. Then there is a different kind of loss, one that feels more direct even if it is not loud. A quiet decision on their side that changes everything without a long conversation. In 2 Timothy 4, Paul writes about Demas, and he says Demas left him because he loved this present world. There is no long explanation, just a short sentence that carries weight. Demas was once present, involved, part of the work and the movement. And then he chose something else, something that pulled him in a different direction. Some people do not drift unintentionally, they decide. They choose a different set of values, a different focus, a different path forward. And you feel that gap immediately, because what matters to you does not land the same way anymore. The connection begins to lose its depth, even if the surface still looks intact. If you look at these moments together, a pattern begins to form beneath the stories. Not every ending has the same reason, but none of them are random or meaningless. Paul and Barnabas show that strong, meaningful connections can still separate. Jesus shows that some people cannot meet you in your deepest moment. And Demas shows that some will choose a different path entirely. And in each case, something continues after the separation takes place. The direction does not stop, and the calling does not pause just because someone is no longer there. That is easy to miss when you are in the middle of losing someone. You focus on who is no longer there, but Scripture keeps drawing attention to what still remains. Purpose does not dissolve because a relationship changed, but your experience of it does shift. Because now you feel it differently, without the same support system around you. It feels quieter, less supported, and more exposed than before. And that exposure can make you question everything more deeply than you expected. Whether you are off track, or whether you lost something you were supposed to keep. Whether this distance means something went wrong. But what if the shift is not failure? What if it is movement happening underneath what you can currently see? Movement that does not yet make sense emotionally. Not every friendship is designed to stretch across every version of you. Some people know you in a specific stage, and that is where the connection was formed and held together. When that begins to change, the relationship has to adjust, and sometimes it cannot. It slowly fades instead of clearly breaking apart. That does not make it fake or meaningless. It just means it was specific, real for that time, but not permanent in the way you expected it to be. In Isaiah 43, God says he is doing a new thing, and then he asks, "Do you not perceive it?" Which means it is already happening, even if it is not yet clear to you. Sometimes it feels like loss first, before it feels like clarity. Like distance, before it feels like direction beginning to form. That in-between space is where most of this tension lives. Something has ended, but the next thing is not yet visible enough to hold on to. You notice who is gone before you understand what is being formed. And in that gap, it is easy to turn inward in a way that is not helpful. You question yourself, your worth, your ability to hold relationships over time. You start searching for answers that are not always there. But Scripture does not rush to blame, and it does not force clean explanations. It shows a quieter truth that unfolds over time. That movement with God often includes relational shifts. Unclear, uncomfortable, and not fully explained, but still intentional and not random. So when you think about the friendships that changed, or the ones that slowly disappeared without a clear reason, it may not be as random as it feels right now. There may be alignment happening beneath the surface of your life. Not visible yet, but already in motion and shaping direction. And while it does not remove the weight of missing someone, it changes what that absence might mean. It gives it context instead of confusion. Not everything that leaves was meant to stay in every chapter of your life. And not every distance means something broke beyond repair. Some distance means something is moving forward, even if you cannot fully explain it yet. And in that space, where you feel both loss and forward pull at the same time, you are not outside of what God is doing. You are in the middle of it.